Yo, what's up? My name is Jonathan Antonio Martinez Machang. I'm from Tijuana, Baja California, Mexico. And this time we have another guest. He is from Germany, but he lives in Austria. His name is. Your name, please, because it's a little bit. I don't know how to pronounce it.
My name is Ansgar Stein, and yes. That's a
Chill,
funny background. I like
chill,
that. I like
chill,
that very
chill,
much.
people, chill,
That's
chill. Yes, and yes. Anga again, again.
Ansgar Stein.
Ansgar,
Yes.
Ansgar, Ansgar,
Yes.
Ansgar, Ansgar Stein. Okay, Ansgar Stein. I'm following you since 2000. I guess I will be like 2000. I started 2012, 2013. I guess yes, because I'm like very curious and I look for didgeridoos, and then you came out with your style of playing with cajon and all that performance that you make. I love it so much. I love it so much that this
Great.
style, this
Sorry.
style very unique that you play, and it's so fun. It's so fun. This is the first question that I make to every single didgeridoo player. That how was how was your first encounter with didgeridoo? How do you know about the didgeridoo?
Okay, so my first encounter with the didgeridoo was in 1992, and I saw a video by the good old Australian band Yoto Yindi.
Mm.
So I think you might know them. And I saw them on MTV, and I thought this looks crazy, that instrument. And so I waited on the television, in front of the television, until that video is repeated, which took me about I don't know 2 months of watching MTV from morning to late in the night, until finally 2 months later it came, and I saw the name of the band and I could take it down. And so just 2 months later, I walked through my hometown, Hanover in Germany, and just saw there was an advertisement for that concert of that band in Hanover.
Wow.
And I was, holy crap, you're kidding me. So I went to that concert, and I met a guy there. I saw a guy there. We danced a little bit to that music. And the next day, I went to a shop where I thought they might have it. And I met this guy, and they had didgeridoos. And he said, well, he told me how to play that stuff and how it is played, basically with circular breathing.
Mm-hmm.
And the instrument was too expensive for me. So I said to him, but maybe you can just take any plastic pipe to begin with. And he said, no, 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 you have to have the real thing. And I said, well, I don't have the money. So I bought myself another CD of some music,
See.
went home, and I took my vacuum cleaner apart and started playing. And that's how I started playing.
With the vacuum cleaner.
Yes.
As me, I remember my I was starting to make flutes, and then I saw the didgeridoo no, not in Google, but I saw the instrument like, no, it's gonna be so hard to do it and so expensive. I said, fuck it. But then I started to type on YouTube like in Spanish, "Cómo tocar el didgeridoo," and there
Hmm.
is and there is still a video from Spain dude that says, "Cómo tocar un didgeridoo con un tubo de PVC." And I was
Hmm.
like, whoa! At that time I was working in AC air conditioner thing, and we were putting 1.25 inch pipe, and we had like a 1 meter and a half piece that we didn't use, and I was like playing with that shit. It was so fun. In how was your first attempts of playing? How did you get the this dude show you how to play, and then how do you develop more and more and more?
Yeah, he basically told me that there's this kind of circular breathing, and for a reason I cannot quite get it. Immediately made sense to me how that works. So I went home, I played with my vacuum cleaner pipe, and I started circulating from the beginning. Next day, I bought myself some plastic pipe
Mm.
from the hardware shop and did some experiments. I did some kind of beeswax, and the circular breathing was never a problem for me. But the basic note was I did not know how to improve on
Mm.
my sounds. So this took me about more than a year to realize. But I was already playing in a band as a guest. So I did some very basic noises in the background on a two
Yeah.
meter pipe or something. And I played in a rock band. And we had a little performance. And some guy in the audience said, well, we organize a workshop with one of the greatest masters of didgeridoo, as they all are. So I have been to that workshop. Maybe you could use it. You can have my place. And I said, what? Yes,
Damn.
thank you very much. And I took that place, and that was my first workshop. And I started to improve on my basic note, on my basic drone. I was playing on the side at that time. And this first workshop was with Gary Thomas. And just half a year later, I had a workshop with Phil Cunningham. And then I switched to the middle. And so since 1994,
Whoa.
I play like center full hardcore full
Damn.
pressure didgeridoo. So now I always started to make the instruments myself. I made them even from plastic pipes.
Mm-hmm.
I cut the plastic pipes in straps and strips and made some kind of, I welded them together again and made them thinner and a little bit larger and stuff and built some bell on at the bottom. And so I started to play with my own instruments. And um, then just 2 years later, we went to Australia, but to buy instruments, and this is where I bought my first real instrument. Before I just played plastic pipes.
I was trying to put a video over here in your YouTube channel. It says Regen number 18 at Queensland. You travel over there. I'm still very dumbass over here with.
Queensland is the name of the location. It's in Germany.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
So this is not Queensland in Australia.
In Australia, in
It's
Germany.
called Queensland because the girl who runs the shop is named King. But because she's a girl, she said I called it Queensland.
Queens. Queen.
So that's why she's called Queensland.
Yeah.
I like that, and it's she's the wife of one of my best friends, very great ditch player from Austria, Alex Meyer.
Mm.
Really, really weird player, and we play together, and we make a workshop together there, and so regularly, and I like that place.
Do you have recordings or videos or something about the rock didgeridoo with didgeridoo rock? It will be so fucking awesome to see the videos.
No, I actually I do not have videos. That's for sure.
Or material on any
No,
website.
I've been into that band where I told you they made a recording way back in the 90s. I might have a CD somewhere. I have to look for it because I play a little bit of didgeridoo, but they mixed it down. They did not really know how to work with that, and at that time it was my first studio thing,
Mm-hmm.
so I didn't know how to tell them how I want to listen to that didgeridoo sound. And actually, I think they didn't care. So yeah, that's not very good.
Yeah,
So
the classical shit
um,
about the musical engineers. I will say like from 10, like two people will feel the challenge of good recording of the didgeridoo because it's very difficult. It's very
mm,
difficult,
yeah,
and
but now I know what I want, so I can tell them. I have been into studio several times with a very, 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 very good sound engineer, and he really knows how to get the stuff. Really knows how to listen to the people. And well, I saw your podcast with Tom, so
yeah.
um, and this is I know those discussions about the
SM, yes, en 57.
SM57. So this is my favorite ditch microphone. and we had recordings done. And he said to me, the studio guy said to me, wait, this SM57 is not good enough. So let me try make it a recording with the very best microphone he had there. So very, very great. And it had a very warm sound, really great. And he said to me, I record it and then I mix this stuff into your stuff. And then you tell me which one you like better. So he did the recording that we did with two different
Mm-hmm.
didgeridoo microphones, the same set with two different microphones. And he said, so which of these setups do you like better? And I listened to both of them, one after the other, again, changing. And after a while, I said, I like number 2. And he said, I give up, because that was the SM57. So, and since then, there has never been a question, how do I record my microphone? I get my microphone with a 57, so full stop.
Yeah, is you play only you play in the most of the didgeridoos I have seen you. They are G's, no F, E's, like this kind of
Yes.
pitch. Yeah, this
Yeah.
is so awesome. This thing you didn't make wooden didgeridoos, just plastic.
I did some wooden didgeridoos, and I also play wooden didgeridoos, and I
Mm.
still have wooden didgeridoos. But usually, since that development in 2002, since the time when they started to simulate shapes, since then I have actually the instruments that I play live, they are measured instrument. These are not simulated, they are measured, they are clones of real didgeridoos, of wooden didgeridoos.
Okay.
So I have the original wooden ones here. I just discovered that I have one wooden one in the back, and I tried to play it, and because it hasn't been played for like a decade or 2 decades, um, I couldn't play it anymore.
Whoa.
So it's amazing, just because the shape of the mouthpiece was different at that time. I changed the shape of the mouthpiece in the
Mm-hmm.
meantime. So I could not really play it very good. It took me 2 hours to really get into it, and then I started to appreciate what this instrument was about. But now I like the copy much more. And the long one that I have, that has actually been that's a kind of a nice story I sometimes tell about that. It's an instrument that was made for another guy, and he gave it to me as a present because he couldn't do with it. It was a very, very narrow inside and very conical with some weird spaces, and the sound wasn't very good. But I like to play several rhythms, very experimental stuff. I
Mm-hmm.
used it on a soundtrack for a guy who did a movie in Germany, and so I used it for that. And then I used it for some demonstrations, and I did another demonstration, and suddenly I found this is the instrument, the main instrument that I use today, and I still think uh, actually I do not like it, but but it's the instrument I play most of the times. It does everything I wanted to do, and this is how I define a good didgeridoo. It does everything I wanted to do. So some people say, like, especially in the past, they said this instrument plays like itself. You don't have to do anything; it plays itself. And I said, yeah, this is not my type of instrument. I want an instrument that does what I want to do. Want it to do. So
uh,
this is my main instrument,
we can
and
say
the
that you don't play the didgeridoo. The didgeridoo plays you.
yeah, and I don't want a didgeridoo that plays me. I do play the didgeridoo.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
So
the
crazy.
third instrument is actually a measurement, but it is a measurement from a fiberglass original.
Mm-hmm.
When I made the first attempts, I tried to make something that comes close to traditional playing and would be a little bit better for to train how to exercise traditional playing. I didn't know exactly what I was doing, so I tried it and it came out quite good. And then it broke and I had to mend it again. So I thought maybe when they came up with this measuring method, I thought maybe I should measure it
Mm-hmm.
and try to just keep it as ultralight copy. And I did that. So it also showed that the copy is not as good as the original
Mm.
because there were some, like, because of it broke, There
See.
were some bubbles inside probably, and we don't know what effect they do have. So we just don't have it cloned right now. It's very close. I can play my stuff on stage,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not like the real one. The real one, the real fiberglass one, it's one of the white ones
See.
back here. So, oh, you can't see that. Oh, you have
There's a
this
little
little.
bit turn.
Yes.
A little bit turn to the camera.
No, it's. I see the background, the green background here. So my hand is off.
No, it's in the
Yeah,
camera.
yeah, but it's
Yeah, the didgeridoos. I see two white didgeridoos and one and
yeah,
at the
and
top yellow one.
these
And then
yeah,
yeah, I cannot
and
see.
this right in the corner. It's very in the back here.
Uh huh.
This one. This is the white original.
Oh.
And it's a very heavy one, and I don't like to travel with it because it's so heavy, but it's still an extremely good player. And so I took this to a festival in Schwarzwald, the Ripangu Yerdake Festival, where
Mm-hmm.
it was in Germany, where some Aboriginal people were, Jalu and Larry and several others of the family, and they took this fiberglass,
Mm-hmm.
played on it, and started laughing immediately.
What?
So yeah, they just handed it around, and they all wanted to play it, and it was amazing. They couldn't stop playing, and they laughed about it. And I didn't know what, but I later someone told me that it might be because they were wondering how an instrument that has no dreaming could do the stuff that they wanted to do. So this instrument is total fiberglass,
Mm-hmm.
and usually you wouldn't expect an Aboriginal person to appreciate fiberglass.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, I think they realized that sometimes even fiberglass instruments can be very good, and some hemp instruments I know of, I think, have been played in informal ceremonies. So in the meantime, it has changed a little bit, but at that time it was completely new in 2002. They couldn't get their heads around that the fiberglass instrument was playing like a real yidaki. So really crazy.
Me as a Mexican, I see that thing like when I don't know if you know about flour tortillas and corn tortillas. That flour
Ah,
tortillas came from the United States because the first people from the United States, all the gringos, they used flour, not corn,
yes.
and then
Yeah.
they made tacos with flour tortillas. And all the Mexicans were like, wait a second, wait a second, wait a second. They were like, the fuck is that shit? Then the burrito came out, but Mexican style burrito, not gringo style burrito, because it's a burrito with beans, rice, guacamole, carne asada, pico de gallo. Pico de gallo, it's like a salsa with tomatoes, onions, cilantro. I don't know how to say cilantro in English, but this a green leaf. In well
Yes.
in shit, and we tasted. Whoa! But it has to
Now I'm
be,
hungry.
yes, it has to be a
Shit.
Mexican style, a Mexican style. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
for a uh, I always would love to talk about food, tacos, tacos,
Mhm.
tacos this, tacos that, tacos everywhere tacos. How's your dream didgeridoo? Your dream didgeridoo, like you said, this has to be like this, and I will be like, whoa, mind blown.
Um, that's a hard question
For
because
example,
I
I will put you things more simple, because I know that you go with Dr. Gapel and make the we're gonna talk about that in a few. And I ask him to because my favorite scale is the Frisian fifth dominant, but I wanted the first two to be the fifth dominant, and Dr. Gapel made it possible. Made it possible with the false toots, with the rest of the toots, the most approximate scale, and that's is gonna be my didgeridoo for me. For you?
yeah. For me, In that respect, it is much, much more simple because I play old school didgeridoo, which
Uh-huh.
means one basic drone, one note. And the only thing that I usually care for is that the first toot is not an octave,
Mm.
but somehow more, a little
Mm.
bit more. And the best is if it has its own resonance in the sound.
Okay.
So if you attach the toof, the toot, it really sounds like a drum.
Yep.
And this is what I do. Apart from that, my instruments are very clear. So I just recently discovered through an experimental master class I did, because actually I was asked by the Spanish Academy of Respiración Circular,
Yeah, we
whatever.
are in the same page. This is how was this from Pedro? Pedro from Spain. Un saludo a Pedro.
Yes,
We're in the same page. So they ask you for participate.
yeah. They asked me to do that, to do some, to offer some lessons or some workshops and so on, especially for the Spanish speaking community.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is that I see the didgeridoo as kind of language based, articulation based, and
Sí.
all my explanations are about phonetical things. And I
Mm-hmm.
can do that in German with very specialized vocabulary.
Mm-hmm.
And through this masterclass, I learned that I can't even do it in English.
Whoa.
And it's very hard for me to find the connection so that you realize what you're doing, that to realize that what you're doing with your language, what kind of similarities does it have and what does it not have? Because on one hand, it is very much like a language,
Mm-hmm.
very much like speech. On the other hand, it is absolutely contrary, and
Mm-hmm.
people never focus on the contrary. I mean, there's a lot to say that. So I draw connections between dialects and accents and stuff. And sometimes I realized I don't have the proper words in English. And especially this is the same
For
complexity for Spanish
for
people
Spanish, yes.
who don't even know the English word. It's very special vocabulary.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's hard to do that. And I realized I can't do that. I don't feel secure that with that. So everything else in English, you can just watch on YouTube how I define a wobble. That's on YouTube. Go there, see it, and that's it. So what I'm looking for in the didgeridoo is a very straight sound with very straight formants.
Mm-hmm.
So I just realized that I had the last two concerts, and for the sound guy, I just did that typical A, E, I, O, U
Mm.
in the didgeridoo and said, listen to the formants, adjust the sound system for that, then give maybe a little bit bass to it, and then the sound was perfect.
Ah,
And it was
chingón.
amazing. So it was exactly the sound that I liked. And this is easy, simple, and I'm a four-man player, I say.
How that getting back about the language, what examples of articulation do you use in German that you cannot like? I know there is a lot of words and there is a lot of things that that those don't even have translation, literal translation to English or Spanish. I guess it will be like that.
Some of them have, but for instance, if I explain the nasal plosive,
Come on,
um,
just do it like you.
like what? Just let me think.
Imagine that that I know German, and you are explaining to
Yeah.
another German speaker.
So so usually if you say haken, let's say haken, the word in
Haken.
it's a hook, haken, and haken has the en
Mm-hmm.
at the back. But if you're in a hurry and you say it more quickly, you don't say haken, you say haken,
Haken, Haken, Haken,
haken, and this
Haken,
is where the sound is stopped here in the back and it goes through the nose. Haken,
Haken.
haken,
With
and it's like yeah,
with vibration of the lip. How was how?
without vibration of the lips. This is the point because there's the
Whoa.
circular breathing. So this is not a didgeridoo exercise. It's an exercise, an example how I use dialect of informal language
Mm-hmm.
to explain positions of like the vellum. In which word do you have the vellum that does exactly that? Although you don't know because you are writing the word with the K-E-N,
Mm-hmm.
but you do not pronounce K-E-N, ha, ken. You pronounce it
Mm-hmm.
with the nasal plosive, which is the back of the throat, and instead of opening to the front through the mouth, you're opening through the nose. And this I usually just use for that little. Um, there's even an Aboriginal name for it. I forgot about this. Um, if you do the voice through the nose instead of circular breathing
Mm-hmm.
when playing didgeridoo, and this is there you can do this.
Mm.
This is this nasal plosive. So just as an exercise example. So these are the examples that I use, and of course I use examples for the glottal start,
Mm.
which you know from English glottal stop. Um, and in didgeridoo, for me, there's a glottal stop and a glottal start, and you've realized that we have it in many languages. And although the Germans are very hard with their glottal starts, because whenever a word starts with a vowel, they say this sound,
Mm.
A, E, I, O, U, always uh,
Mm.
uh. It's typical
Mm.
German, whereas someone else would be say A, E, I, O, U, or something is much more softer.
Mm-hmm.
And we always do this, but usually you have it in your language. So I don't know where it is in Spanish, and I would have to find out. And this is, yeah,
Yes,
this is
it's
this is
gonna be
the trouble that
complicated.
I have.
Yes, indeed. You didn't
So
find someone in German that speaks Spanish, so they can try to.
my girlfriend learns Spanish, but
Okay.
to realize that when you have this kind of pronunciation and it is written in that kind, you usually used to write it down, your mind does not necessarily make this connection.
Yeah.
Even if you do the language, but you learn it from with written words and not by feeling it, but you know how to write it, you know
Mm-hmm.
how to read it, then your mind does not necessarily make that connection. So it's still pretty hard to make that connection sometimes.
I know that feeling because right now my English is like very fluent. I sometimes I get stuck with some words, but at first, if you see my first interviews, I'm like, because I was thinking in Spanish to speak English. I think Spanish one phrase, and I was trying to translate that in English and then speak in the moment like that. And now, like right now, I'm thinking in English and speaking in English, so it's more fluent. And for
Yeah,
that kind of stuff, it will be so complicated. You have to be like a Mexican that learn German to explain this kind of stuff. You or and that will be only for Mexican people because there is you have to find a Spanish dude who learned German to explain the Spanish people, the Spain people, because it's gonna be very
yeah.
complicated. Because over here in Mexico, I was one time with a dude from Mexico City, a dude from Puebla, from Yucatan, from I mean as Tijuana from the north. Between Mexicans, we didn't understand each other. Like, what the fuck do you say? I say, what? What is that shit? And like
Yes,
things of because Mexico is huge and we have different kind of
but
uh,
it doesn't have to be huge. We have the same in Germany. We have some dialect areas. If
oh
people
yeah.
do not really force themselves to speak standard German,
Mm-hmm.
you don't get a word. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
just
yes,
so
yes.
different language dialect groups from several areas and several historical backgrounds. So it's really crazy,
In
especially in Austria sometimes.
in Austria, there's oh well, the Austria, Switzerland, and north of Italy, they are like they're very different kind of Germany. German,
Yes, yes.
what is Dutch? No, Dutch
Well,
speaker?
actually, Dutch is quite close to German, and the word Dutch comes from the word Deutsch. So
Dutch.
it's originally the same word, but it developed in a completely different way, and they are now very, very, very much different from German.
Okay, okay.
So some people do not have problems understanding it. My girlfriend, for instance, she does understand Dutch. I do not. For me, it's a language of false friends from beginning to the end. Whenever I think this word means this, because it sounds like the German word, it means something completely different. And if this word is pronounced like this, I can't understand it. If I read it, then I can understand it. And then I think, oh, this sounds like the German word so and so, and they say no, it means something else.
Cabrón. Is like in Spanish. The for me like your situation for me is Chile. The people from Chile.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
I, I will challenge your girlfriend to watch some Chile people speaking Spanish. You will be like, what? Say what? For me,
Give her 2 more years for that, please, because she just
even for me, it's
yeah.
very complicated to understand the people from Chile. But not all the people, but I will say the majority. They speak so weird Spanish, very weird Spanish. Que huevón, 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 huevón.
Yeah.
Relax, homie, relax. I don't understand shit. And this is why, for me, heading back to the didgeridoo theme, this is why for me playing, I want to play trad, but it's very complicated for me because the language. I'm very sure, and I was like very like I have to understand the language. I have to understand the language so I can play it because the only thing is like Didgeridoo, Didgeridoo, but I don't know how to straight pronounce Didgeridoo, 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 and I want to
Yeah.
know more phrases in the language of Yonglu or people, but I don't have access to nothing.
So the thing is about that is that many of the explanations that were used to explain how to play didgeridoo
Mm-hmm.
came from Yolngu people to Western to Australian people or people who went there,
Mm-hmm.
mostly English speaking people. So there's another language barrier from
See,
Yolngu to English to
exact,
German.
exact.
And then from German, you try to find the way into that system via English, and it's still confusing like hell. This is why I for some time I tried to find out what the wobble is
Mm.
until I found out that it is used completely different by different people with a different past. Charlie McMahon claims that he has the wobble installed in the language system, but I feel that through this journey of the didgeridoo
Mm-hmm.
in a non-internet world before there was internet,
See.
that people took that whole concept and completely redefined it or misunderstood it and then used it in a different way, and then it was exported to another country like maybe America and so on and so on. So it had a completely different story of that term, and wobble is just an English standard term, so
Mm-hmm.
nothing special about that. But if you then go into trad playing, when you do this, what Milkango Munungur said is hard tongue playing,
Mm.
it's very, very hard to understand what is the hard part of that tongue and what does he want to do with that. And sometimes if you, as I said, I do a lot with articulatory phonetics.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I sometimes get to come to the conclusion that even the people who thought about that in the beginning weren't quite um, holistic in their view. They didn't cover all the things because if you come from a language, you do not reflect every little part. It's not their culture to analyze to the finest detail what the language does.
Mm-hmm.
So you just say this is your important part for you.
Mm-hmm.
and then people take that over, and you can mock like the diddle 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 did, and it sounds like the original. But then you try to play and you find out it's not.
It's not the
Has
same
nothing to do with that. So
because
I use it.
your
I use a different.
uh-huh. Yeah, you use a different.
I have a different approach to that.
Mm-hmm.
So I do not play traditional style in that way, and I do not teach traditional style, but I had some influence and some input from traditional
Mm-hmm.
style, and this sometimes I can pass on because this is from a Western person um, to traditional people who want to play traditional. And if with that knowledge, which focuses on the differences between what can be done, these people then have a better idea if they ever have the chance to get two Aboriginal people to play, and they might have a better idea in that way. And also there are, of course, now that I know of it, there are more traditional teachers that are very, very, very good, like Kyle Maples in England. He's just amazing. The variation that he gets out of that instrument, some of those sounds that I wanted to learn for decades and never got an idea how they do it. And I all put it on the instrument. But then Kyle Maples picks a standard slide didgeridoo, and plays this exact sound that I want to play. And he says, "Well, yeah, it's good to play that on a slide ditch, on a didgeridoo." And I was like, okay, it's me. It's not the instrument. It's me. I can't do that tongue movement. So
It is like you try to say didro didro didro. It sounds very different than me.
yes, it does.
That's the whole thing about this issue because they will explain one thing and then a gringo will explain another thing and a dude from UK will explain the same and it's the same pattern. It was played like in a German will explain it like this, the same thing, but it will sound different because
Yes.
the differences in the muscles that we use. I was trying to practice French and it's very tired from here like bonjour puis je suis allé à la toilette. You know, it's like
Oui,
that
oui, oui,
from
oui.
yeah.
Je sais, je sais.
In German is like Austin Bachis Austin wir kann Dachen Austin it's like very angry man like
That's very good. That's
yeah
very good. Yes.
it is tired is more tired from the cheeks in this kind of stuff we in
Hmm.
Spanish what I have heard that from other places that it's very difficult because the las
Yes.
R's. We have a song that we always tell to gringos to sing it like R con R cigarro, R con R barril, rápidos corren las ruedas del fuerte ferrocarril.
I can do that sound, but I have to really get into it. And if it's very short in a word, I'm lost. I can do it with a little bit.
Rum, 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 rum. In in that in the
That's
didgeridoo sounds very cool.
yeah, I know. And I trained that with Italian. Italian has the same stuff. So and this is I didn't do that for a while. 33 Trentini andarono a Trento tutti 33 trotterellando. So
Oh, it sounds like trabalenguas tres tristes tigres tragaban trigo sentados en un trigal en tres tristes trastros.
yes.
It sounds
And
like that.
this is very hard for me because that quick movement for me I have much difficulties. So I can do it with a little bit of time before and a little bit more hour. That's okay, but that's very hard for me. I have to train that. So because it's not part of my everyday language, maybe if I did learn a bit of Spanish, I could
Mm-hmm.
do it after a while, but I leave that for my girlfriend right now.
Yeah,
So
I was looking for a literal traduction in Spanish of wobble,
mm,
and it's like very simple. I don't know why we always overthink over. We are overthinking things. It's just temblar, like I'm wobbling my hand. So
Yes.
there is a lot
Yeah.
of there is a lot of ways to wobble the sound of the didgeridoo, but we always like no, you have to inflate your cheeks.
Mhm.
I have seen a lot of players like doing and it works. No,
Yes.
for me it's
It
funny,
works, yes.
but
Like
it
Stephen
works.
Stephen Kent is very famous, but he also has a different kind of wobbling style, which is very crazy. And Alex Meyer, I told you, the guy from Austria, he has another one that is absolutely weird, but you may have seen him on Facebook. So
You are mentioning a
um,
lot of names. Only Stephen Kent, I know.
Stephen Kent. Okay,
Yeah.
so maybe I send you a link of Alex Meyer and
Mhm.
what he did, because he was also part of one of our festivals, like the what was it called? This online festival that we did with Peter Burney from England.
Peter Bernie. I don't
Um,
remember the names. There was a lot of people that I didn't know.
yeah, and Alex Meyer, I think in the second one he did the opener,
Mm.
and had a little opening thing, and he played the typical Alex Meyer wobble. So
Okay.
yes, and this is a strange movement of cheeks that I never understood. It's a complex mix between tongue and cheek movements, and but quite different. So
In
strange.
myself, I didn't. From my last of playing, I don't use too much like inflating the cheeks, and I make the wobble from.
Mm.
It don't
Yeah.
I don't inflate the cheeks so much. Sometimes that I need to approach some no sound, but very fast.
Yeah,
Now,
for me, the
for you.
cheeks are necessary in that way for the way that I do it. If I do
Mhm.
not do it, there's one sound less, but I make one distinct sound with the cheeks.
Okay.
So if I don't open the cheeks, my wobble doesn't work. So if I do this, this wak, that was the cheeks.
So what
So
you what you? Mhm.
do wakati wakadu wak. You that's one of the things you can't say that word because the cheeks are not part of language. They
Mm.
just don't. You can't. So if I just do it in the languages, di do di do, because the wak is not present, so you can't do it with language.
As
This is one of the main difference between
yes.
didgeridoo systems and language. So you don't have cheek sounds there.
No, there is no cheek sounds
Yeah.
or how to hit. So it sounds the drone, but you want to hit one harmonic to sound a little bit
Mhm.
harder. There is no way to put it on a language. You know.
Yeah, for me that on the other hand is easier because the guy who taught me the toot was an Aboriginal guy, and he said, I asked him, how do you do that? And he said, I just say dup and it happens.
Yeah. Mira.
And so I dup, brr, brr, dup, durru, dup, doyu, dup, doyu, dup, doyu, dup, doyu, dup, doyu.
Mm.
And it's the position of the lips that does it. And at first I thought I have to push differently, but now I even if I do the toot, I want to make it very soft
Mhm.
so that the sound guy doesn't turn me down, because the toot usually is very loud and very intense, so the sound guy turns you down.
Mhm.
So I try to make it very low volume, and it doesn't have any. I don't have any problems. I don't use any force with that. So I really just do happens.
So
I say dup and it happens.
so crazy.
Yeah.
Now with didgeridoo, with Dr. Gapel, how do you meet him? You are in the same country. You have the blessing to live in the same country and know each other. I was
Yeah,
mind blown if I know him in person. Like, woo! For
yeah,
all the didgeridoo geeks.
yeah, he's such a lovely guy, and He works together with Kai Reimer. Kai Reimer. And I have now, I sometimes pronounce the German names in English. So Kai Reimer. Um, and I know Kai Reimer. So these two guys met each other, and I don't know how. And I met Frank Geipel through Kai Reimer. So typical German names. Um, and since then, we had some conversations, and we met on several festivals. So that was the connection. And Kai Reimer, a good friend of mine from old days, he lives in Hamburg. He was the one who developed the way of measuring the didgeridoo, like how to find the inner shapes, the volumes of the didgeridoo.
Mm-hmm.
And since they were working together, they developed together the way of they used my way of making fiberglass didgeridoos to try prototypes, and so we three formed this kind of connection. And Frank Geipel, of course, has this kind of weird knowledge about frequencies and stuff. So he even programmed this evolutionary algorithm that now is used to go over these calculations
See.
time over time to see which one of those is the best and most closest to the desired sound that you want to have. So, and it's for them, they are not part of the didgeridoo scene actually. They keep in their own. They like to be in their rooms and fiddle around with this stuff, but you rarely meet them. Kai Reimer especially, you never meet him, and Frank Geipel rarely shows up. He showed up in one of the German festivals from time to time, but that was basically all. So I met him, like the last time was 2 years ago on one of those festivals, and this festival now stopped. So I don't know where we meet next time, maybe next year sometime. Maybe we finally managed to make a meeting of all three of us with our girls and partners and whatever, because we are all friends. We know each other, but
Mm-hmm.
we never met together, and this would be a nice thing to do. Yes.
Y-
So
n- You're
from time to time, I come with an idea, and Frank Geipel sends me back a shape, and I try it, and I said, okay, yeah, great. And then some other guys comes to me up to me and says, "Wow, I played your instrument. I want to have it." And then, okay, there you go, brilliant stuff. So
How many
yeah,
didgeridoos do you have from measurements from Geipel?
actually, one of my main instruments, the one that you saw right here,
Okay.
um, this the shape is made by Frank Geipel, and the print has been done by a friend of mine from Graz. But this is just 3D printed. It's very lightweight. So it's my online workshop didgeridoo, because I can just hold it like this and play right into the microphone. So this is very easy for me.
Yeah.
And this is the main shape. And this was they tried to find several special instruments. That was around 2002 or 3, I think. And at that time, I was looking for a new instrument that would give this idea of Cy Molumby's playing a little
Mm-hmm.
bit more space, a little bit more resonance. So they had 3 on offer. They tried 3 shapes for completely different stuff. And I said, can I try them? And they said, yeah, okay. And I picked this one and said, okay, can I have this shape? And it turns out this one was one of the earliest projections that Frank ever did. So very early, very simple, but still with a note that you can learn how to play traditional style on that. But it's also usable for modern style, for old school modern style like I do,
Let's see.
and several of those. So it's for me it's a very all-rounder, and this is the instrument I mostly play, and I offer this for students as well. So usually for workshops, I take a bunch of those with me, and so that every student has the same instrument basically. Maybe with a difference in the mouthpiece, maybe the shape is a little bit longer because I cut it a little bit too long. But basically, these are the same instruments, and they all have the same potentials, so they know what the instrument can do. And so this is Mostly what's there in the back is this instrument, um, the same shape in different colors and different lengths, and then some more special. I try to have a smaller shape because this diameter sometimes is a little bit too large for me for traveling. If you have to like carry 10, 15 sticks around with you, that's a little bit too heavy. So I wanted to have a smaller one, but I haven't yet decided which one it actually is. And it might even be like I could ask Andrea Ferroni, but we are very good friends. But I don't want to make a competition there. So Andrea Ferroni sometimes really has very good beginners instruments as well,
Okay.
and special instruments. And because he's got also this kind of computational thing around projecting shapes, he also makes very weirdly good instruments. So yeah.
If I was in Europe, also can resolve that deal with some of my creations, because I
Mm.
have made one F very like very close bell section
Mm.
in you can detachable in two parts, but but with wood, not I haven't worked with fiberglass, uh
Yeah.
still maybe in the future, I don't know.
Well, if you have the chance, this is something that is people think is hard for me to say, but if you have the chance to work with wood, do it. Because for me, it was a solution just to be able to make lightweight instruments for me and my students,
Mm.
and for me for traveling. But wood, of course, is much more sensitive to little changes. You can make a little bit here, make a little bit there, do a little bit less there. And of course, wood has this kind of feeling when you work with it. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the feeling, what happens when you work with it, is much more important than um, what it does in terms of sound. Because if you like that, if it feels great, then you might be able to do more with that instrument as if you just have this kind of fiberglass. And this fiberglass stuff is, for me, if people ask me how can you do workshops for fiberglass making, and I thought it through and I said no, I can't. And it's not that I wouldn't do it because of tips and tricks, but if you have never done this before,
Mm-hmm.
and if you are not absolutely sure what you're doing, or you're willing to ignore some mistakes that happen at the beginning, then fiberglass making can be quite,
Pain in
I
the
wouldn't,
ass.
yeah, pain in the ass, but I wouldn't say dangerous, but it can be quite tricky.
Mm.
Maybe you develop an allergy.
Mm.
Maybe you have to clean your skin. At the beginning, you have to really have very concentrated movements with your hand. If you don't have them, maybe something falls down and touches your skin, and you have to rub that stuff off or leave it on until it is dry, which just means 2 hours of exposure of this highly cancerous material to your skin. So, or you take like acetone and really wipe it off. And this is something that is, if you don't know what you're doing, you should learn it before you do it, and you can't learn it without doing it. So in the meantime, I'm a little bit more sensitive to that. I know that people who build surfboards, they haven't been very sensitive about that. They just did that because they wanted to make surfboards. But it turned out that some of those have big troubles because the material is very toxic in its rough state. When it's hardened, no problems. But also the fiber, the glass fiber itself, you cannot touch it with your bare hands because it's glass.
Mm-hmm.
So you cannot sand it without complete full body protection. You should not sand wood without body protection, but it's not that hard than doing it with glass fiber. I did that on a very hot day, and I really regretted that. The fiber sticking to my side and rubbing the didgeridoo in every direction and stuff. And after that, I was like 1 week sitting around like that and creaming everything
Oh,
on
su
my skin.
pinche
So,
madre.
whew,
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine.
so it can be tricky. And I'm the kind of guy who ignores that, just as I ignored foreign people playing on my instruments. And at the beginning, because I was one of those guys who were opposed to this kind of esoteric stuff that was going on in the early 90s, especially.
Mm-hmm.
So, and all the people were treating like their instruments, even it was the crappiest didgeridoo, the crappiest bamboo stick, they were treating it like it was holy, although it was made by in Thailand or something. And because I did not want to be like that, I let anyone try my instruments, and I didn't care at that time. Nowadays, I care a little bit more. I always have a little bottle with me, so
What's
spray it, and
okay? Yeah.
pure alcohol, and it's not medical alcohol,
Mm-hmm.
so
Te
it can be
pones
done
tus
for anything.
pedas ahí. You will get very drunk.
Yes,
Spray.
if I even saw a video recently about a guy in America, because in America you can actually buy 100% alcohol for drinkable things, and this is just 80%. So, and this guy had a few glasses of that. So
Chingasum.
yeah, and he said he just gets drunk very quick, but if you don't do it very often, it's okay. But I don't trust this. I wouldn't do it. So I just make this as a little demonstration. But if I do more, please
Yes,
not.
I was trying to put a story in Instagram, but it's no cannot concentrate in one thing. I will put it for another more
One of
more late.
those times when I'm happy that I'm not on Instagram, because even Facebook. I'm old now,
Mm-hmm.
so Facebook is a little bit too old-fashioned for many people. But I don't want to deal with anything else. I mean, if they turn down Facebook and switch it off, I'd be okay with that. But and then figure out what I can do instead. But right now, Facebook is my platform finally.
Okay,
So
okay. And do you have a material, EPs, albums, and where can we find your material?
yes, um, it's hard to find. You can find it on my website, which is www.projectpan.de.
You will have to give me all your information, your social
Yes,
media, and
yes,
all this. So put it
yeah,
in description of the video. But
yeah,
you
yeah. I can
continue
do that.
in.
And I even found we had a very, very, very early recording, and the rights of that are out at the moment, I
Mm-hmm.
think, and someone recorded it, and it's just on YouTube. And I wasn't sad about it. I found it right interesting because I don't have an original anymore. So it was really great for me to see that that old, very old trance recording, Didgeridoo and trance from 1996,
Damn.
um, and find it on the internet by some weird guy who just let the record run and recorded it and put it on YouTube. So yep, it's very crazy, early, old school stuff, and I like it very much. So yeah,
So you play since 1990 what?
1993.
I way I was
So
8 years
next,
old.
yeah, next year will be my 30th stage or learning birthday. So I will have 30 years next year. So yeah, I
19.
started out busking, but nowadays I don't do busking anymore. So and I don't want to. So, but that's a different story.
1993 I was 8 years old. I didn't have
Yeah,
didn't have idea of that instrument. I just saw the Steve Irwin documentaries and heard that sound, bossy sound with the kangaroos and shit, and it was like,
yeah, yeah.
I don't care. Now we're like a didgeridoo freaks and nerdies.
Yes, absolute nerds. Yes,
So
my nerd factor is very great. So this is one of my favorite.
if you suck at playing didgeridoo, that's probably why.
So this original thing was made with a trumpet, but I think this works very good for a didgeridoo as well. And so yeah, I use that for my T-shirt.
That's a very funny T-shirt. T-shirt. I hope.
And it has a very nerdy background because this is a play with words, of course, in English, but in Germany it has a layer more because there's actually one player who claims not to blow his instrument but to suck his instruments.
Ah, cabrón.
It's Monty Python's Flying Circus. Okay, let's stop that. Yes. Yeah.
Pinches locos.
Monty Python's Flying Circus. Okay, yeah. So quite nerdy by nature. I'm Nordish by nature and I'm nerdy by nature. So I'm a nerd in a way that not many nerds are because I'm not very clever for a nerd. So nerds usually are very clever people with lots of background, and I'm not. So, but I'm still very nerdy. Nerd
Yes.
factor.
Yes, we're nerdies in our knowledge, in like
Yes.
Mr. Gapel is like very focused in these acoustic things. You you are very player with every single people. The interview goes to one certain thing. Like with us, we have the same thinking that language is a very tough thing about the didgeridoo playing, because for a gringo, takawaka is Taki very simple. For a Mexican, it's a whole different thing. It will be takawaka
Guacamole.
almost like guacamole, but with takawaka, we don't write with W, we write with a G and a U and an A.
Yeah.
Wa,
Yeah.
wa. In Ka will be a
I'm
C
just
and
thinking.
A.
Have you ever tried of playing guacamole?
Nope. I will try. I will try and make a video.
Maybe.
Like one I was trying to make off times, and there is a Spanish hippopotamus, in Spanish hippopotamo.
Hippopotamus. Yeah.
Hippopotamo. Or there is another word very long, parangarakutirimícuaro.
Ah, okay. Yeah, that's nice. I prefer that because hippopotamo is hippopotamus because of the P, and the P is the basic note. So if you want to play that, you will have to make really hard P's, which makes the result not sounding like hippopotamus anymore. So in my book, like in my nerdy frame of that. So you can try it, and it probably is a good exercise, but it will not sound like hippopotamo. But this other word, you might even be able to play a didgeridoo in a way so that it sounds like that word.
Parangarakutirimícuaro. Say it with me. Parangarakutirimícuaro. Parangarakutirimícuaro. Oh, you almost got it at first. Oh, holy damn. Parangarakutirimícuaro. Parangarakutirimícuaro. Oh, damn.
Parangarakutirimícuaro.
A la segunda, a la tercera la agarró y es de Alemania. Is my daughter over here? What the fuck? He's doing it.
and you have to send me that name. I will use that. I will train that. This is my new training word for this.
Parangarakutirimícuaro.
Please write it down, and I give it to my girlfriend to read to me.
Of course. I don't remember if it is Nahuatl or Purépecha. the only thing I remember is from the state where my dad was born in Michoacan. So over there is no Aztecs. Over there are Purépechas and another kind of indigenous people over there. So this language, it's a Mexican native language, but it will
Wow.
be like very awesome because I want to learn Nahuatl. Like there is a song in Nahuatl. Amonitlali tenkipion chocani ishoshimete oklalpan. It's, I don't know if you have seen Coco.
No.
And there is a song of Dia de Muertos is called Llorona, the crying lady. But in Spanish you can say it in one word is Llorona. And is that song in Spanish is I don't remember in Spanish the song. But Amonitlali tlenkipion shokani ishoshime teotlalpan. This is an awesome language that involves a lot of sh, k, and t, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in this kind of sounds.
Mm.
And also the Mayan language, it in it o tla ali
Ui.
ik and
Wow.
the ikut dalaya dit on kind of like that.
A lot of glottal stops in there. Yeah.
Yes, there is
Hmm.
there is I in back in the days 2008 2007 they were trying to evangelize me, the Jehovah Witnesses, and I saw that they have a book to learn Mayan, and I was saying, I want that book. No, we cannot sell that book because this is what we start. No, I will pay you. How much? No, we are not selling. And at that time, I was making straight dollars because my uncle. I was working with my uncle, and I have like $25. I will give you $25. Okay.
That's a great story. But that Nahuatl word that you tried to teach me, what does it mean? Do you know what it means?
Parangotirimicuaro.
Yeah.
That it's a place, I think.
Ah, okay. Ah.
And we joke a lot, all the Mexicans, because a lot of Mexicans don't know how to pronounce Paranga. I can Parangaracutirimícuaro. It's a place in Michoacan, I think. I'm gonna investigate. I'm gonna give you the 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 meaning, how to pronounce
Yes.
it, how it is right, and it will be like a phrase in didgeridoo. It will sound very crazy.
Yeah. There's, as we have been talking about German dialects, I'm now going to offend anyone from that area in Germany by trying to do that in German word, but I will try it. So it's da hogger die wo alle weiter hoggert.
Salakadula chalchikomula bibidi babidi boom. It's more tougher. It's more tougher than Parangaturikmik.
Yes. So da hogger die wo alle weiter hoggert, which just means there are the people sitting who always sitting there. So that's all. That's what it means. Da hogger die wo alle weiter hoggert. And we actually try to play that as a didgeridoo in workshops.
Da hogati bidid
Fine.
da hobat
Da hogger die
da hogadi
wo alleweil.
bo alabai.
Da hoggert.
Da hogat.
Da hogger die.
Da
That's
hogadi.
that's the people sitting. Those people. Wo alleweil, which always sit there. So the people sit there, which always sit there. It's the same guys. So yeah.
La misma pinche raza de siempre, man. Like in Spanish.
Que cazzo.
The one last question. As a musician, do you play another instruments or just didgeridoo?
I very much focused on the didgeridoo because of my upbringing in that scene in the beginning of the 90s. I focused on that and I got some expertise through experience at that time. But I played a little bit of jaw harp at that time, but I did not go further into that. I do a little bit of harmonic singing. with my songs, and I tried to start playing the buron, this Irish drum,
Mm,
this little the hand drum where you
mm-hmm.
have a little stick and then and stuff like that. And I liked that very much, but I couldn't get further. And also with my band Ara at that time, I started to play a little bit trombone.
Okay.
But I just learned the stuff that I needed for the songs, and it never came to a point where I can say I play this instrument. So I can play a little bit trombone if you need it, and you show me where to put it. But actually, I'm not a good, or even not even a decent, not nothing on the trombone. It's just for joke.
You
So yeah,
you as you are a musician because the didgeridoo, not
yes,
another
yes,
background. Oh, so awesome, so awesome. Learning.
and it's still because I have no musical education
Mm,
whatsoever. It still sometimes feels weird if people ask me, "What's your profession?" My official profession is actually musician, and this to say that sometimes feels
weird.
weird still after all those years. But it's weird
Yeah.
because I have no education in that area. I studied graphic design, and I was a decorator, might be the word
Mm-hmm.
in English. We had another name for that. So this was the first part I learned. Started to learn decorator, and then I went to graphic design and
Mm.
studied graphic design. But then I became a musician out of nowhere, and this is still very weird. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Most
how
of
it goes.
the didgeridoo players like me. Uh, First, I was like I love guitar. I like I didn't like so much playing like rock band, but there is Andy McKee, John Gom, Antoine Dufault, Don Ross, Ewan Dobson. These are like finger style guitars. I wanted to play like that, but it was so difficult that it was in Mexico. There was no Mexican player that played like that. I just knew two guys in these times, and it's Rodrigo y Gabriela. They play a lot in Europe, and there is a lot of Julio Revueltas that play like that, but they are not in Mexico all the time because they play around the world. And then
Okay.
I knew the didgeridoo. And most of the people that are like that, they play another instrument and then they go to didgeridoo. When
Yeah.
like you, there are a few dudes like you that started with didgeridoo and then just didgeridoo,
Yes.
and there
Yeah.
is a lot of time. This is that is passion. That is like
Yeah.
Mexican.
Well,
In
I
Mexican,
just thought
esos son huevos, cabrón. Yeah,
huevos.
huevos.
I actually thought, yeah, of course I do play cajon
Mm, there is another one. Yes.
in a very basic way. I wouldn't consider myself as being a cajon player either. So, but I use it to accompany my own setup, and I have
Yes.
my own way of using the shakers on my hand.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw a guy sitting on a cajon doing with this stuff and with lots of percussion.
Mm-hmm.
And this inspired me because he was a very, very great drummer, but I thought the didgeridoo could have a little bit more attention, which is always the case when I see proficient drummers playing drum and didge. Sometimes I think you're playing very good drums, but the didgeridoo could have a little bit more of your attention.
Yes.
And for me, it's the other way around. For me, the didgeridoo is the main part, and a drummer would probably say, or a real cajon player, maybe the cajon needs a little bit more attention, but I'm doing a didgeridoo concert and I can do my own accompaniment, and this is the best you can ever do. So I love that.
Yes. Yes. Well, thank you very much. Your name, again,
Ansgar.
Ansgar Stein,
Yeah.
from
And actually, if we are on pronunciation, the German pronunciation is Stein with a
Stein, Stein,
Stein.
Ansgar Stein,
Ansgar Stein.
Ansgarns,
And
Ans,
this is the
Ansgarns,
German Ansgar.
Ah.
Ansgar.
Thank you very
Backthroat.
much.
Arr.
Thank you very much
But
for
I
this
have I have
interview.
a second name, and it's
Okay.
Manuel.
Manuel?
Yes. So if people have really trouble and they don't want to offend me, but they say, give me another thing, I say, my second name is Manuel, and this can be pronounced by basically everyone around the world. So
Here in Mexico, we call to all the people that it's called Manuel, we only say Meño.
menu. Okay.
Ese le
Cool.
pinche Meño. Cámara.
Meño.
Ese le
Good. Okay, I
Meño.
like that. I like that.
You have a Mexican name now. You are Meño. El Meño de Alemania.
Okay.
So
That sounds
awesome.
great. Okay. Yeah.
Thank
Cool.
you very much for letting me interview you, and
Thank
I
you for the
appreciate
interview.
much.
I really enjoyed it.
We learn a lot from every single didgeridoo player. We just realize that language is not like a barrier, but it is like a boom. You will have to climb it and keep it going. You know, trying to say.
Yeah.
And
I know.
language it makes a little bit difficult for the didgeridoo players around the world, because didgeridoo it's now in Brazil, in Argentina, Chile, Colombia, Perú, Venezuela, Ecuador, Panamá, Honduras, Costa Rica, Salvador, Guatemala, Mexico, all the countries in the whole world, and even let's go to Asia. There's Japan, Philippines. This the whole thing. A
Sometimes
lot
I
of
wonder
languages.
about the Chinese.
There
Do
is,
they?
yes, there is. I know
Yes, they're
there is a dude
cool.
from Taiwan, and there are some few of they are out of China, because over there they cannot use Facebook and all that stuff. And there is
That's why I
people
wonder. Okay,
from
yeah.
China. Yes, there is a lot of people. Also, there is some dudes. I have one Facebook that it's sometimes try to hire didgeridoo players so they can go to play to China, not Taiwan, China, Shanghai, Beijing, and all that
Wow.
big cities. I don't remember
Yeah.
his name, but he
Yeah.
sometimes he wants to hire didgeridoo players to go to China, the Republic
Hmm.
of the Xi Jinping. That guy.
That would be interesting. That
Yeah,
would be
very
interesting. Yeah.
crazy, so crazy, so crazy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
This is Jonathan Antonio Martinez Machine, and
Ansgar Stein, thank you very much.
bye.
Okay. Bye.